Welcome everyone to this explainer on tightly coiled hair. Today we are officially unpacking Lesson 2 of the 4C Hair Retention mini-class presented by Arlana Styles Man Extensions for the Crown Standard. We're going to dive deep into how moisture actually behaves in tightly coiled hair. We are taking years of styling frustration and completely replacing it with some pretty fascinating biological truths.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the moisture illusion, the moisture mountain road, water versus oil, hydrophobic buildup, the saran wrap trap, and finally, cleansing imbalance. Section 1, the moisture illusion. We are challenging the absolute biggest myth in textured hair.
Oily hair is moisturized hair. I mean, we see this everywhere, right? It's heavily pushed by trend-based beauty marketing, but we really need to confront this head-on today, because this single, massive misconception is holding 4C hair retention back more than almost anything else out there.
It turns out we have to completely separate the tactile feeling of our hair from its biological reality. While a strand might feel coated, greasy, and super soft to the touch on the outside, the microscopic truth is usually completely different. Internally, the core of that hair can be entirely dry, parched, and brittle. Just because it feels moisturized on the outside absolutely does not mean it is actually hydrated on the inside.
Moving on to Section 2, the moisture mountain road, the architecture of a 4C strand.
Think about the literal shape of tightly coiled hair. We call this the moisture mountain road. A 4C strand naturally contains dozens of sharp bends, twists, and zigzags. It's kind of like a severely bent paperclip. While straight hair allows natural scalp oils, which is our sebum, basically our built-in conditioner, to just glide right down the shaft effortlessly, 4C hair creates a massive physical obstacle course. The natural oils really struggle to navigate those continuous, sharp curves.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why we experience such uneven dryness. Because that sebum faces such a difficult journey, it often just pools right at the scalp. This means the mid-length and the ends of 4C hair are left completely without that natural lipid protection. It's just a structural reality that makes the ends incredibly prone to severe dryness and mechanical fatigue.
Section 3, water versus oil. Let's define true hydration.
Biologically speaking, true hydration is not a surface coating. It's an actual chemical bond process. It only happens when actual, literal water molecules physically enter the hair shaft and bond with the internal hydrogen and keratin proteins. Basically, if water isn't entering the follicle, hydration isn't happening, period.
Because of this, we have to remember, oil is not water. Slathering on heavy butters might protect the outside, and sure, it makes the strand feel soft, but it does absolutely nothing to provide internal structural hydration. Think about it this way. You wouldn't try to hydrate a completely dry sponge by pouring olive oil on it, right? The exact same logic applies to our hair.
Section 4, hydrophobic buildup explained, the water repellent barrier.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the term hydrophobic. It literally means water-fearing or water-repellent. When we constantly layer heavy oils, butters, and silicone-based styling products on our hair, we create hydrophobic buildup. These incredibly large lipid molecules just sit directly on top of the cuticle layer. They seal it completely shut and actively lock vital water out of the hair shaft.
Let's look at the usual suspects here. Heavy butters, thick oils, and silicone-based gels or edge controls are your primary moisture blockers. But you know, it's not just products. Your scalp is skin. It naturally produces sweat, sheds dead skin cells, and secretes sebum. When all of these elements accumulate without being washed away, they combine together to create this impenetrable, toxic shield right over the hair shaft and the scalp. Section 5, the saran wrap trap, suffocating the strand.
The curriculum uses this incredibly visceral analogy that I just love. It says applying heavy products to unwashed hair is like wrapping a dying, dehydrated plant in saran wrap. When it finally rains, the water just beads up and rolls right off. We might honestly think we're locking moisture in, but if the core was totally dry to begin with, we are literally just suffocating it beneath layers of plastic.
And this perfectly explains the breakage we so often experience. It's the ultimate illusion. Sure, the cuticle is sealed shut with lipids, so the hair feels smooth to the touch, but the reality is a completely starved core underneath. Because water simply cannot penetrate that barrier, the internal proteins dry out, elasticity completely vanishes, and at those natural bend points we talked about earlier, the hair just snaps.
Section 6, cleansing and balance, removing the barrier.
So the absolute most crucial takeaway is this: you cannot moisturize unwashed hair. Adding more water or a ton of leave-in conditioner on top of hydrophobic buildup is entirely useless. It's just going to beat up and evaporate into thin air. You have to effectively cleanse the hair with proper shampooing practices. You must physically strip away that barrier so that water can actually gain access to the interior of the strand.
But remember, hair porosity and moisture are part of a very delicate ecosystem. Tipping the scales too far in either direction causes unique structural failures. On one hand, we have moisture overload, or hygral fatigue. This happens when the cuticle is excessively swollen with water for too long without enough protein to support it. It becomes totally mushy and stretches until it breaks. On the other hand, there's protein imbalance. If you use too many heavy keratin treatments without enough water, the strand becomes overly rigid, loses all of its elasticity, and snaps like a dry twig.
So healthy retention relies on this trifecta, working in constant harmony. Step 1, true hydration, which absolutely requires actual water entering the shaft. Step 2, cleansing, using a real shampoo to clear away that buildup, sweat, and environmental debris so the scalp and hair can finally breathe. And step 3, maintenance. This means actively balancing your hydration and protein, ensuring your styles aren't creating excessive tension, and managing the natural structure of your 4C hair with respect.
The Crown Standard leaves us with this mandated closing message, and it's a powerful one. Healthy moisture begins with understanding what the hair actually needs. Moisture is not about adding more products. It is about creating the right balance of hydration, cleansing, and maintenance. You see, the goal is not to force 4C hair to imitate straighter textures. The goal is to care for it with far greater knowledge. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to take away from this explainer today. We just spent all this time unpacking how a massive part of 4C hair care was built on visual beauty trends rather than actual biology. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other personal care routines are we doing completely backward just to meet a visual standard? Think about that missing instruction manual in your own routines. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving into the actual science behind the standards.